I think members of the House will agree that the Prime Minister gave a statement that really set out a great plan of action for the next 12 to 3 years of what this government intends to do to continue building a better economy and a better public services and a stronger community here in New Zealand. There's no doubt that the government inherited an economy in freefall where there had been no new jobs created in the export part of our economy, the productive part of our economy, for 3 or 4 years. Not one new job from exporting in 3 or 4 years. In fact, we lost jobs in the productive part of the New Zealand economy. It was, in fact, the non-productive part of the economy, the non-tradables, as the economists call it, part of the economy that grew substantially. So we had large numbers of increases in the public services, large numbers of increases in jobs in real estate and property, but when it came to the productive base of the economy, the number of jobs under the previous government fell by tens of thousands. And that is what this government inherited. A country where its engine, the export economy, had dropped to about a fifth of the job creation that's needed. And the member opposite says lowest unemployment. Well, of course, when the country had had 7 or 8 years of great economic indicators driven by the world economy, of course there's opportunities for New Zealand. But when things tighten up, we start to see the fact that it was just a paper man that was previous government was. But the Prime Minister set out some very clear expectations of what the government and what the community will be seeking to achieve over the next year. And he talked about how we're going to make New Zealanders have the skills they need to participate in the global economy with a strong focus on education, supporting our schools and our teachers to implement national standards. If there was ever a time that the opposition was out of touch with mainstream New Zealanders, it's their backing of the isolated teacher unions against parents who are in favour of knowing how well their kids are doing and strongly support national standards in literacy and numeracy. We heard from the Minister of Education today expanded opportunities in the Youth Guarantee Scheme, which is to deal with those kids who don't fit in to the usual secondary school system that we have in New Zealand. The Minister of Education has been round the country in the last week or so, opening a number of these trades academies, and we've really made huge achievements there. We've talked from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister talked about what we're doing to build better social services in New Zealand. One of our flagship programs is Whānau Ora, which integrates health and welfare and justice funding in order to have a real focus on what really matters for families and communities. And our Prime Minister also outlined, together with our Minister Paula Bennett, the special focus we want to have this year on vulnerable children, because we want to give Kiwi kids every opportunity to succeed, and we're dealing with that across a whole range of government departments and services in the most comprehensive way. And it's not a little slogan that gets written up as a new direction, but it's actually something that's tangible and being delivered. We're delivering better support for children in state care. The outcomes and the problems of children in state care is not what you and I would want for these kids. So many of these kids have come from hard backgrounds and difficult lives, and the previous government was happy for that to carry on. We don't want that, and we're doing more to help these kids in state care, and we've got also a real focus on child abuse and how we can fix that. Secondly, in justice, we've got a lot of work underway to protect kids from abuse, tougher penalties for neglect, and we're helping those children who have to go to court as witnesses or victims. In health, we've got the best immunisation rates. If we can give kids a healthy start in life, it really sets them up for their childhood and adult life. We've got record levels of immunisation. You know, they spent 9 years talking about closing the gaps between Maori and non-Maori. We've closed the gap on immunisation to the lowest level it's ever been. So that's the fantastic work that's going on in the health service. We're improving maternity and early parenting services. We've got a strong focus that we're going to be talking about in trying to eradicate rheumatic fever from New Zealand. There'll be further announcements on that. So a lot of investment going into health. We're fixing the before-school checks. So that's all part of the special focus on vulnerable children. And in education, of course, we're promoting participation in early childhood education and helping children succeed at school. But look, the times are tough. Everyone knows that the global financial crisis had a dramatic impact on not only our country's tax base, but also internationally in the demand of consumers overseas. But the government is seeking to protect and grow our public services with a strong investment in health and education, but also a strong commitment to improve the productive and export part of the economy. But here, Mr. Speaker, is what will put that at risk. Extravagant spending promises from the party opposite if they ever get the opportunity to be government again. Because we know that in these short few months, they've promised over $5 billion of extra spending. $5 billion of extra spending over the last few months. The tax-free threshold of $1.3 billion is just a huge and totally ill-thought-through pledge that's going to put up the taxes on middle-income New Zealanders. GST of fresh fruit and vegetable, that's $250 million. No dividends from the state-owned power companies, that's one of their promises. That'll cost $700 million. They're going to restore all the changes to early childhood education. That's another $400 million. Restoring the research and development tax credit, Mr. Speaker, another $330 million. Parental paid leave to 18 weeks, estimated at $500 million. And they're promising that. Restoring the capital contributions to the super fund, that's another $2 billion that the party opposite have promised. And of course their promise to back pay disability support workers who did sleepovers. That's a $500 million promise as well. So they promised to back pay for 6 years on the sleepovers case, plus to pay them going forward. And that's another $500 million. So that's a huge bill of over $5 billion promised by the party opposite. The only good news is they'll never get the opportunity to have to keep any of those promises. But it is a very serious situation when the leading opposition party in New Zealand does not accept that this is a time for financial discipline. It is not a time to start promising huge amounts of money when we know they simply cannot deliver that. So this is a party on this side of the House that the Prime Minister has set out an agenda where we are going to be working so hard to get the economy sorted and moving and providing benefits for New Zealanders. And there are positive signs out there that the export economy is ramping up and providing more job opportunities. But after the last 9 or 10 years where there were no job creation in the export sector in the last 3 or 4 years of the government previous, it is taking a lot longer than many people had expected. But what we're also looking at is how we can improve the public services of New Zealand with the investment that we currently have. The New Zealand government under National Maori Party Act and United have put $1.2 billion extra into the public health service. We've sought to protect and grow the public health service. We're providing more than 400 extra operations a week in elective services for New Zealanders. 400 extra Kiwis a week getting elective surgery. We're speeding up our emergency departments so that people who are turning up with their families when they feel vulnerable are getting service much faster. And we're also making a real commitment to make sure that we lift performance in a whole lot of our preventative health areas. More immunisation, more help for smokers, better focus on diabetes. These are all important, and we're putting a stronger investment also in making sure that our cardiac services work better for New Zealand. So it is an exciting period of time in New Zealand, a period of challenge with the difficult financial situation that we face, but the Prime Minister has set out a quite clear agenda that focuses on what really matters to the New Zealand economy right now, and that is a focus on the export part of our economy, improving savings and investment so that we have the resource to back the productive part of the economy to create jobs and wealth for New Zealand. And our responsibility on this side of the House is to make sure that we support that effort from the Prime Minister and make sure that we can deliver that brighter future that New Zealanders are looking for.